The homestead's got some problems with serious astronomical ramifications. Welcome back to another episode. Today is July 24th. I'm not exactly sure when this video is going to get out. I am about 3.5 to 4 weeks behind actually collecting footage, getting it edited, and getting it posted. So that's why the garden looks like in these weird stages for the dates sometimes as far as when these videos are getting posted. This one may get posted a little bit closer to this date. This is why that date's important. The garden really should look a little differently than it does for this date in the summer. Now let's get a closer look and update on things before we talk about what this serious problem is. Let's just take a real quick tour around the garden, and we'll start here because this is where I'm closest, is the sweet potatoes. They look great, honestly. There's some Japanese beetle damage. Once I tore down the bean vines, we'll come back to that in just a second. They decided to come here and feast, but not so much. I'm not sure why they changed their mind and stopped eating on it as in the heavy sense in which they were. I'm not complaining. Maybe they didn't enjoy the way my sweet potato greens tasted. Over here is the one that I planted in this, I think this is a 5-gallon or 7-gallon grow bag, and it's not doing too bad. We'll see how these do. My Yukon Gold, I've got 9 grow bags with Yukon Gold growing in them, and they seem to be doing pretty well. There was a time here in the last few days, you can see these plants right here don't look so healthy. I'm not sure what's happening there, but new growth keeps coming up on these, so I feel like they're doing okay. This was a jalapeno pepper. I went ahead and pulled it up. There was another one here. I went ahead and pulled it up. I only got like, I think 6 or 7 peppers off the 2 plants. I don't know if that's because it was in the container, or I don't know if it's because of my astronomical problem. This is a cayenne pepper plant. It has produced a ton. It's not a very full plant, but it is still producing at this late date. And here's a couple of peppers right here. You can see that they're still getting blossom production. I'm going to continue to let this thing grow and do its thing. The lettuce has been really interesting. About a month ago, all of this stuff started bolting. I had 4 different varieties planted here. You can see them. They started bolting, so I stopped harvesting the lettuce itself so it could complete its bolt, because I wanted to harvest the seed from it. And it has taken forever for these flowers to mature and to develop the seed. I would have cut the bolt off and kept right on eating it had I realized some things that were going to happen. Learning experiment. Let's talk zucchini. Planted 6 zucchini plants. And here they are. And honestly, 2 to 3 weeks ago, these things were just tremendously tall and full. And I think, and this is my theory, I think that a squash borer really got into them and did a number on them. You can see where I've kept them dusted with BT. Here's 2 right here that have just completely died. Here's the remaining 2 healthy plants. That one over there is producing fruit, but the fruit's rotting on the vine. Not exactly sure what was happening there with the zucchini. Again, I think my BT was just too old, so it was ineffective to kill the squash borers. That BT was probably 7 years old, 7, 8 years old, but it's what I happen to have. I do need to replace it though, because I got some other squash that we'll see here in just a second that I need to make sure I get good and protected. Or it could have been the other astronomical problem. Let's talk cucumbers. Here is the cucumber plant. It is finally starting to really get some nice, good, full growth once it's got tall enough. I think that the zucchini was blocking it out. although we haven't pulled very much fruit off of it. And there's a cucumber right now that I can see that's not developing for whatever reason. Not sure what's happening there. Let's look at our winter squash. If I could have done it over, I would have planted these when I planted everything else, knowing what I know now. I purposely waited to plant these so that I could harvest them closer to the fall when things were cooler, because I don't have anywhere inside where I can store what I anticipated and wished was going to be this huge bumper crop from all of these. Here's the butternut squash. We've got some fruit growing here. Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squash on here. Seeing the development of some other blossoms, we'll see if we get more than that off of it. I hope that they turn out. The spaghetti squash, we've only got, I don't know, 3 fruit on here. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. I need to go buy a new BT for these guys just to make sure that they survive. Let's talk green beans. I pulled up the old vines because they weren't producing any beans, and I replanted. These are growing up pretty nicely. I need to get in here and thin these out. These are a bush variety. Let's talk tomatoes. Let's see what we got here. This particular vine is a better boy, and it is just, it's loaded. It's loaded with fruit, and this is just so crazy to me because it's so late in the season and it's just taking so long for it to happen. This is the Amish paste that I said I was going to rip up, and it finally has some fruit growing from it here, which I think these actually go with that because the vines are crisscrossing now. San Marzano, they're not very big, but there is a ton of fruit on here. I'm very pleased with the amount of fruit. If it'll just come to, if it'll ripen and come to full fruition. Here's another San Marzano. Again, lots and lots of fruit. Here's our cherry tomato plant, and we've picked, I don't know, we probably have picked a little more than a pint so far this summer, but you can see lots and lots of fruit on here, and some of them are starting to ripen. It's been amazing to me, once one starts to ripen, how long it's taking even these small cherry tomatoes to come to a full ripening. And that leads to our astronomical problem. Our astronomical problem is the sun, or the lack thereof. Both of the garden areas that I have, the main garden that's in the side of the original, and here where the tomatoes are only getting about 4 hours of direct sunlight a day. About a month ago, when we were reaching the summer solstice, you know, that longest day, the first day of the summer, all that good stuff, I set up a time lapse so I could actually see how much sun each one of the areas of the garden was getting. And the main garden was getting approximately 4 hours of direct sun a day. It would happen, I think, starting around 9:15, 9:30 that morning, and by 10 o'clock it was in full sun, but by 1 o'clock the shade was moving in. Here with the tomato plot where it is located, it does not start getting its direct sunlight till lunchtime, till a little afternoon, and as the sun gets over the trees here, and then once it starts setting behind this other big batch of trees, it ends up getting about 4 to 4.5 hours of direct sunlight a day. The cause for that is all of these trees. So here's the trees behind the house, and we go around, and here's the trees in front of the house that really surround us. And when we moved here 16 years ago, that's why we picked this place, because of the trees. We hadn't planned on trying to grow food at that time. But even then, and we started that garden, the shade was not an issue. You can compare the photos from this time to even just a few years ago, and you can see the difference in the tree coverage. I never really appreciated just how much of a bowl this property was until yesterday, when son number one came home and flew his drone overhead for us. And you really get to appreciate just how much this canopy grows inward and shades everything, or at least all the places that we have available to try to grow some food. My hypothesis is the lack of sun is the reason for the less than desirable results from the garden. The slow growth of the cucumbers, of the eggplant, the lack of blossoms on the beans, the slow to ripen aspect of the tomatoes, all of those things, which also leads to some important decisions. What do we do next year when it's time to plant a new garden for the spring and the summer? Do we just not grow any of these things? Do we grow other things, then barter or buy the other things that we would like? Don't know. We got a few months to decide. It also has some implications for how long we try to conduct this experiment on this property. We'll see how that goes as well. I have some ideas for how I'm going to try to trick my tomatoes next spring. Hold off on those details till it's time to roll that experiment out, assuming we're still here at that time. Thanks for joining in. Thanks for getting all the way to the end of this video. Will you do me a favor? Will you go down below and give it a thumbs up? Maybe even share this with somebody that might enjoy this as well. While you're down there, if you're not already, why don't you go ahead and subscribe so you can keep up with what's going to be the answer to those decisions that I just talked about that we'll have to make. Always remember, the one who created you made you able to create also. So get out there and make it, grow it, and live it. I'm gonna redo that whole thing because somebody's truck has got loud pipes.